wherever you are. Welcome to the 2024 Chief in Tech Summit, the CTO panel on leveraging AI for competitive advantage. With great honor, please join me welcome three amazing technology leaders. We have Fiona Tim, Chief Technology Officer of Wayfair. Fiona drives technology innovation and execution, propelling Wayfair to new heights in the e-commerce sector. We have Michelle Grover, CTO of Slalom. As Slalom's first CTO, Michelle brings extensive experience in IT and software development for her role in steering the company's technological advancements. And we have Sheila Jordan, SVP and Chief Digital Technology Officer of Honeywell. Sheila is leading the charge in integrating digital technologies into all areas of Honeywell's complex global operations to increase efficiency and effectiveness. And my name is Elaine Zhou, and I'm honored to be the moderator for today's panel. Well, welcome, ladies. To start, every one of you represent a company that is at the forefront of AI innovation and adaptations. Maybe each of you can give a very high-level overview to our audience, what you have been using AI so far. And maybe we start with Michelle, and then Fiona, and then Sheila.
So I'm in a unique situation because I am the CTO of Slalom, which is a consulting company. So it's interesting because, of course, I run in-house operations, but we also are there to help our customers and our clients figure out how to use AI in order to drive their business transformations as well. So I'll talk a quick bit about that part. The consulting side is the boring side. We'll talk about our part longer. But for consulting, essentially, our customers are asking us, how do we leverage this? How do we find efficiencies? Heck, how do we use it? It's new. When do we use it? Which things do we buy? What do we turn on? What don't we? So a large part of that is going in and being those stewards and shepherds to kind of help them figure out, not just pointing it generically at everything, but what are the problems that mean the most that you want to try to solve? Internally, we did something a little bit different. A lot of times when the newer technologies come on, the first thing we do is we give it to our consultants because the consultants go and do that on behalf of customers. But this time I actually carved off a certain amount that was just for the internal team, for teams like legal, GPT, our global people team, for our procurement team, teams that use a lot of data in their day-to-day work, and easy data, they wouldn't say it's easy, contracts and things like that, where if you point generative AI at that, it just the summarization alone, that means we don't have to pay for an external counsel or paralegal to do a lot of this work. So that's where we've seen a lot of benefit in-house by actually bringing it in-house and looking for efficiencies in our core areas instead of just looking for the fun place for us to put it with the engineers or with the consulting team.
That's really amazing. How about you, Fiona, and Wayfair?
Yeah, it's interesting, Michelle, you mentioned some of the in-house areas that you've been able to leverage. Maybe if I take a step back, so Wayfair, we're e-commerce, very focused in the home category, and so I think traditionally we've been using AI and ML for quite some time, and the focus has always been the customer experience and pretty much all aspects of the customer journey, right? So if you think about especially the home category being a very sort of inspirational but also emotive, it's hard to describe what you want to look for. So certainly everything from search, recommendation, personalization, product understanding, understanding the essentially creating the catalog, etc. So we've been doing that for quite some time now. With the generative AI capabilities, I think there are some interesting applications for it, certainly still in the customer experience space. If you think about, potentially getting to be more agent-based in terms of shopping, more conversational, etc. But, I think as Michelle pointed out, there's also some really interesting applications within the sort of enterprise area as well, right? Certainly, to your point around contracts and legal teams. So how do we enable sort of some of our enterprise functions, as well as some of the operational sort of commerce parts, right? Product understanding, being able to use some of the multimodal models to be able to better understand inventory and text, et cetera, right? So it's certainly exciting times, lots of really interesting applications across the board.
That sounds very exciting. How about you, Sheila?
Yeah, so I'd like to answer the question in two ways. First, let's talk about our internal deployment, and then I'm going to talk about what AI means for industrial automation, because it gets super exciting. So from an internal perspective, we've been at this journey since last February when Gen AI was introduced. Of course, we've been using AI for the last 10 or 15 years, but Gen AI offers some unique capabilities in what I would call a disruptive technology that allows us to do things that we otherwise couldn't have done. So super excited about the potential. In fact, I think it's going to have a bigger impact on employees, partners, us as consumers, and how we work, live, and play, almost as big as the internet and or mobile phones and or search, whichever disruptive technology you'd like to refer to, it's going to be that big. So we organize. I have this organizing principle that there's like 5 chapters or 5 pillars of our Gen AI strategy internally to Honeywell. The first is, of course, we're doing the 365 Copilot and really around content aggregation. The second is really what we're doing around our engineering community. We've rolled that out quite aggressively to over 3,000 software engineers, and we're using GitHub in writing code, and that's both in the engineering community as well as IT. The fourth is we're using large language models, and that really has addressed our tech docs, so how we produce technical documentation, contact center agents, really how we really just make sure we've got the right content at the fingertips of either sales or contact center agents. Another example is we're looking at the sales assist and how we can make our sales team more effective. So there's a whole bunch of examples in the large language models. The fourth one is really how we think about applications that are coming that we purchase. So commercially available software that I purchase, I always refer to MoveWorks, because MoveWorks is the platform that our smart virtual assistant runs on. And that is Red. We call that Red at Honeywell, that you can actually ask Red anything. As an employee, you can ask it any kind of questions across HR, your expense report, IT, facilities, and Red will answer. Well, MoveWorks just now has added their Gen AI into it, so it's even smarter than it had been. And we've been, I think, had MoveWorks deployed for 3 years now. And then finally, it's really around our products and services and what we're embedding AI and Gen AI into our products and services. So that's a nice shift to what we sell. So that's a really nice shift to think about AI in industrial automation, because AI is augmenting existing technologies in manufacturing and process plants to help thousands of pieces of equipment operate in a coordinated way and achieve higher levels of autonomy, optimization, reliability, and even performance. In these environments, AI can help in the following ways. AI can help customers optimize their existing controls, making them more adaptive to changing environments and sustaining optimal operation for a longer period of time. And what's even more exciting is AI can also increase the reliability of an asset. Inevitably, plant equipment degrades and will fail over time. And today we use sensors and analytics to detect those patterns of failure and intervene to avoid unplanned downtime. But by applying AI, we'll have the additional methodologies to detect patterns of failure, particularly when paired with new sensors like acoustic and video. So it really does have a huge applicability, AI does, in our Honeywell industrial automation.
That's amazing. That's amazing. A few years ago, I was in the World Economic Forum talk about the fourth industrial revolution. So when I thought about all these fourth industrial revolution, Honeywell definitely come to mind, right? So I'm going to just dive into some more details so you can share more of those insights and experience with our audience. I'm going to Michelle, so given Slalom's extensive experience and expertise in data analytics, could you share how you're integrating AI to transform traditional business analytic into predictive or prescriptive analytic, either for your clients or internally for different departments?
So we're doing it both, and Sheila talked about some of the same things that we're doing, which is, especially during this current time, is pretty volatile for a lot of us as businesses. There's just a lot going on. We are looking at predictive models around our sales motions, our sales opportunities. We're also looking at predictive models to try and help us figure out where to spend a lot of our time in the marketplace for help and support which particular clients for which particular things. Not every tech is for every client. the right tool in the right tool belt at a particular time. So being really prescriptive around that, we're using that in the markets and with the consulting teams. Internally, similar, we are looking for opportunities to make make it easier for people to find information, which everybody has this problem. We all have a platform that helps with knowledge sharing, getting you the right SOWs, RFPs at the right time, the right information around about benefits, from the world over. Where are you? What types of things do we have around benefits? So we're using AI, generative AI, to help with that. Another thing that is really interesting too, though, is AI is great, but it doesn't solve your data problem. So a lot of the conversations we're having with customers, and even internally with my leaders, we have to remind them that when you don't invest in your data models and your data platforms, or just aligning in where you will have your data lakes, this is not just pointing AI at it is not going to fix or solve that. So a lot of time we spend with our customers is also reminding them that not just enabling the AI capability will automatically get them the results they need. You still need to actually put some effort and some time and some money into getting your data in the right place so that it can provide you the insights that you actually need.
That's fantastic insights. Sheila, I read about this Honeywell Forge platform. Can you talk a little bit about how you integrate this AI-driven analytic across all your sectors? Like you have aerospace, manufacturing, and building technologies. Will you share some of those experiences, how you leverage that?
Yes, certainly. But I'd like to just comment on what Michelle said. I couldn't agree more. You cannot have a Gen AI strategy if you don't have a data strategy. So like the Gen AI sits on top of it. And I think actually Gen AI might actually begin to expose some of the data quality issues. So we've all talked about data quality. And if you don't have that solved for, then Gen AI won't really deliver the value that we all know it has the potential to do. So, but yes, back to Forge. So I'm super excited about Forge. We have one of our strategic business units in Honeywell is something called Honeywell Connected Enterprise, and it's actually a software business. And so we actually connect the things we have previously sold as software. So think about connected services. And really the essence is Forge is the platform that really does the convergence of IT and OT. And what we see, especially the manufacturing industrial supply chain world, is manufacturing and sites will become the next major problem to solve. Because why? It's laden with legacy tech debt and applications. It's laden with not necessarily having a corporate IT strategy and enterprise view, but really each kind of site, manufacturing site, fends for itself. So we have a huge opportunity to really think about how we're going to simplify, standardize, give a visibility, and from a security standpoint, give the visibility of what's going on in OT. And when you think about sensors coming and robotics and all the technology that's going to be offered in the manufacturing supply chain plants and sites, all that data is going to be thrown off from those devices, the hardware, and that lands in Forge, which is again is the convergence of IT and OT. So we're quite excited about the offering, the timing, and it's one of the biggest problems we have to solve for with and through our customers.
That's fantastic. Talk about customers. I'm looking at Wayfair has been at the forefront of using AI for enhancing customer shopping experience. By the way, I'm a big fan and as a shopper. Fiona, can you share insights into how your AI initiatives have evolved over time, especially when we see all these fast advancements in Gen AI with machine learning, LLM, and how does that impact the business?
Yeah, so certainly, I think for the customer experience side, and we talked about a little bit with the home category just being specifically a little bit tougher than most categories. I think it's one of the toughest categories actually to sell, especially online. Describing a chair, a sofa that you want to buy, a lot of times you're like, I want a blue sofa. That's about as good as it gets. And so for us, the ability to understand and to be able to glean as much information from what you get from from customers, and it could be, you know, you're kind of augmenting it with sort of behavior on the side. What have they clicked on? What have they seen? To be able to help really craft the, you know, the search terms, etc., right? That we can then go, and then we need to be able to use a lot of the capabilities again, and AI, and now, you know, the large language models can even help more so in terms of understanding the products that you sell. So we have a catalog, you know, tens of millions of products within it. And, you know, you have various amounts of information that you get from your suppliers, right? You have some imagery, some amount of text, and you need to be able to extract out all the information, you know, really create the tagging, the attributes, so that you can understand it as well as you can, so that you can then pair it up, right? Essentially, it's like a matchmaking game between, hey, Elaine, you came to our site, and this is the best product for you. And the only way I can do that successfully is if I can use a lot of the generative AI capabilities, the traditional and the generative capabilities of the large language models, to be able to understand what you want, even though you may not be able to articulate it, you know, in the most precise terms, and then pair it up with the most perfect item for you, right? And I also may not get the most perfect imagery or the most perfect description from a supplier, but how do I use sort of the large language models to help sort of fill in the blanks there? And then I think as the area continues to evolve, especially around the multimodal capabilities, you can also see a world where, you know, instead of you sort of typing or kind of expressing in words what you want to look for, you know, I think a lot more inspirational, more visual. You can see, you know, generative imagery, right? So if you don't understand, or you can't tell me what style you're looking for, you can say, hey, here's my living room. So we have some of this capability, and you can use generative imagery to be able to generate, here's your living room in 8 different styles. So it's essentially the room that you're familiar with, but then now you see 8 different styles, and there's like glam and bohemian chic or something. I mean, goodness, right? I can barely keep track of
the experience, you know, it's like make the whole life experience, in-person experience.
Yeah, and then you see it visually, right? And then after that, you can then kind of hone in on what exactly that you're looking for. So there's certainly a lot of really interesting advancements that are going on. Certainly for us, you know, being able to take advantage of the multimodal capabilities is very key. But if I may, I think Michelle and Sheila, especially when you talked about some of the even for the customer experience, which I've been talking about, right? At the end of the day, though, the sort of underlying data and some of the legacy, Sheila, you mentioned, issues, I think, do still need to be taken care of and solved. So Gen AI is not a magic bullet, doesn't solve all of that. But interestingly enough, for us especially, you know, we have sort of a legacy construct that is really around very, very large database tables and monolithic code bases. And as an example, another application of generative AI has been, we've been able to use some of the language models to help us understand and document these large databases that nobody has, you know, that whoever initially set it up has, you know, has moved on to much more exciting things, and also be able to help with some of the code decomposition. So I think it's also, that's the other thing I would say is that, you know, also look at Gen AI to help you with some of your most legacy problems, because I think those are exactly the kinds of things it's good at, right? Understanding tens of thousands of stored procedure lines, right? Those are all things that are good applications for it as well.
Actually use Gen AI to help your developers so that they can build better features and products to serve the customers. It's amazing. Yeah. So how, you know, we talk about the customer experience, and how about internal customer, like employee experience? Sheila's, I understand that's some area that you have put in a lot of effort in.
Yeah, so I mentioned it in a bit, but I mean, this was a vision we had almost 4 years ago, where we actually decided that there's, you know, one location for all employees to get their questions answered. You know, how much PTO time do I have remaining? How do I file an expense report? You know, what's happening in my facility, and is, you know, what the hours of the facility. So every kind of employee question, you want to go to one place. So we decided to make this not 100 bots, when bots were really exciting, but we wanted one single bot, which we called this the SVA, the Smart Virtual Assistant. We went through a naming convention, so we wanted to make sure that it was inclusive and diverse and globally acceptable. So we call it Red. And ask Red. So we ask Red, is it like a goofy face, and ask Red anything you want to ask Red. And the cool thing about it is, you know, it started with IT, and then we added HR, we added finance, and, you know, all the different components. But again, the company is MoveWorks, and what they've done is they've now embedded Gen AI in. So you can ask it some really complex questions. You can organize it that you get all your PO approvals on Friday afternoon in one location. So it sits in front of all the applications behind the scene, and you literally don't have to go through. We still have the HR systems and the finance systems and all those applications, but you're not having to go in and out of those. Like Red is the front door to all of it. And it has been, one of the things we found is I think it was 30% of our calls to our contact center agents were our own sales team calling to find the order status. And so we like, oh my God, so now the sales team can literally go ask Red anytime they want what the order status is, and eventually we'll roll this out to our partners and customers. So it really has been sometimes I like to be, smart and good, but also lucky. And, this one is a little bit lucky because we really have, now that they've improved the Gen AI capabilities, we have inadvertently put Gen AI in the hands of every single employee in the organization. And it's here, it's now, it's not like in the future.
That's amazing.
Super
wow,
exciting.
that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So now that as leaders of AI adoptions, how did you ensure, in the early on, the very beginning, how did you ensure a smooth and easy adoptions? What would you advise our audience who might be early in this journey? Maybe I've started with you, Fiona.
Yeah, so I think with AI and ML, I think Sheila, you mentioned it as well. We've been doing it for quite a while, so I think there was good understanding of it. I think when generative AI started coming up, it was a little bit of a different beast, right? Because I think there were a lot of concerns around data privacy and how would our employees use it. Might they inadvertently, have content that ends up getting put into the public domain, etc. So one of the things we did in the beginning was set up a sort of cross-functional counsel team to help us evaluate. So it was, someone from our legal team, a couple of people from our legal team. Even for them, that was new for them because this was a sort of a little bit different kind of thing to be evaluating. Procurement, and we had certainly the scientists and the software engineers, ML engineers involved in this little council to help evaluate. Sometimes it's foundational things, right? Around the tech, and so, for example, the early negotiations with, say, OpenAI or Google, etc. What kind of indemnifications should we be asking for? What kind of problems might there be? It was helpful to have, this one council sort of that could kind of build up their understanding of what are the things that we should be watching out for. And then over time, you want to make sure that as teams are evaluating what are the use cases and what foundational models they want to use or what LLMs they want to use, you want to make sure that that's closer to the actual domains, right? So the legal team may want to use something different from, say, the technologists, right? But at least it's kind of now, it's kind of going through this sort of foundational council that has built up the expertise or even cost, right? Like, I don't know about how it has been for you all, but when we first started talking to some of these companies, they really didn't even know how much it was going to cost. So they don't know, we don't know. We're like, shoot, I don't know if I should roll this out or not, because it's now such an easy technology to kind of get going from a pilot phase perspective, but then the actual productionalization, I think, is a little bit more complicated. So I would say definitely if you have for us, it's been helpful to have sort of one team that was sort of helping us look through it and evolving our understanding.
I see. How about you, Sheila? How did you get started with such a large organization? How do you do it?
Well, so again, I assigned a leader into the whole council. Like, there isn't a function inside the organization or one of our strategic business unit that isn't thinking about generative AI and the application of it. But I really wanted us to be focused on the big boulders or the big bets, because we could get so distracted with the noise and the things that were like a little administratively helpful, but not really driving value. So we really made a rule that we said, you come up with the idea, factor in the value that would be delivered this year, and then we'll net the cost of that against the value. So, you will get the value, you will cover the cost for this year as we learn. So what that did is it really allowed us to focus on the big bets and the ones that were very serious and the ones that we could see, a return pretty quickly. So that's been a really successful deployment strategy. So the one thing I'd say to those who are just starting is that, first of all, every individual should start to use it. Like, just start using it, Chat GPT on your own personal level. I had a CIO that worked for me once, and she told me that she would go into her refrigerator and take the pictures, and then the recipes would come out. It would take the contents of the refrigerator and see. So using Chat GPT as a person in your personal life, and learn how to do the prompts and learn how to write a poem for your significant other or whatever that is. So one, just start using it yourself. And then as you're leading this in the organization, I would say get really focused on what are the big bets and what pain point you're trying to solve.
Got it. Michelle, so I would like you, what's your advice? You both have external customers and internal, customers.
So we did a few things. We actually, much to the dismay of my counterpart, the CISO, when we had a panic of everyone all of a sudden was getting their own ChatGPT subscription on their corporate card and expensing it. And he said, we have to lay down some kind of foundation. So we did do the council route, but I also talked to him about that it's okay for them to experiment. Let's give them guidance instead of paying for, OpenAI's enterprise ChatGPT, when, just like Fiona said, they weren't sure how they were going to charge. They still are a little iffy on some of the models around the cost, whether it's by certain transactions, certain things, it's a lot. So we were really worried about, if we go do this big bet and we haven't actually investigated to see who are the teams that should have it. Do we get it to everyone? Is there a subset of people who should have this to kind of play with and can show, like Sheila said, that return on investment? What big bet do we want to bet on as an organization, and why does it make sense? So we actually put training in place immediately. The first thing we did is we put a subset of rules out that said, this is what you can and can't do with it. Then we asked everyone, the entire company, to take the training. Just take the training, at least familiarize yourself. Started a lot of different AI groups. And then we still had that, essentially the CAB, the control board, to essentially moderate. And we had people from all the different teams. And then something that actually was a benefit that we didn't anticipate is by bringing legal in, because I brought legal in and actually gave them, we also did the co-pilot, their pilot program, but I gave it to legal and procurement first.
Smart.
They calmed down a bit. It meant that it wasn't this, we're in engineering, a lot of times we talk at people and we don't always bring them along. And so I didn't want that. I wanted them to actually have their own opinion of the technology. Everybody can read the news. We all read that, but actually having that experience, because it also informed the types of rules and regulations that we put in internally. And it also stopped a lot of the concern that would be unnecessary, but it also focused on some things that we weren't concerned about, that we should have been concerned about. So having that balance and really just making sure that everyone is involved, and also understanding that we're going to make mistakes, the best you can do is put that guidance out and let people know that there is some guidance for them to follow. I think those were the things that we did right that made it a little bit easier. It also helps people become less concerned about it taking over and all the other really scary things that sometimes pop up in the news.
I love that your very strategic move there. Now that you have enjoyed such success in leveraging AI, how do you approach the challenge of scaling AI across different departments within your organization? Sheila, will you want to share, consider how large the business units within Honeywell?
The question was around scaling?
Yes.
Scaling and skill sets? Is that what you're...
Scaling AI solutions in general within your organization.
Well, again, this is where I get super excited, because I do think I agree completely with what Michelle and Fiona said. This technology is such a disruptor, and it's relatively easy to get it out and do a POC. So we've got POCs and we've got testing and we're seeing it. Now, the one thing I would say is that with every single one we're deploying, there are value drivers. Like, where do we think the value is coming from? What's our hypothesis about the value? What do we expect to see? And within 90 days, you can see if you're on track to the value or not. So it's not until you actually deliver the value and see the value. Now, it might come in differently than you thought, but when it proves that it's delivering value, whether that's productivity or improved sales effectiveness, a higher win-loss ratio, a higher close ratio, whatever the metric is, when you can start to see it, then you can scale. Like then you can really say this is a big deal and we're going to get this out as fast as we can to the relevant function or the relevant, party that needs to. So again, I think this is super exciting where it's not like it has to be the same thing for everybody in the organization. Like again, every function in every strategic business unit, we have 24 use cases that we're deploying. I mean, not even use cases, but big initiatives that we're deploying. And it's fun to watch it move from POC to pilot to scale. Like it really is fun to watch the how fast the technology is moving and the adoption.
Right, that's fantastic. So AI, come down to is often seen as a double-edged sword, right, in terms of automation and job displacement. How do you address these concerns within your strategic planning, or if there's any concern at all? And if there is, what steps are you taking to ensure a more positive societal impacts? Maybe, Michelle, I'm going to start with you, especially in both consultancy.
I think, now I will date myself. I've been around for a long time. So we cycle through this every new innovation as though we have finally hit the time when the computers are taking over and none of us will have to work. I do like my little shark robot vacuum, so I am appreciative of that part. But I think that realistically, what we're looking at is ways to become more effective in role. Ultimately, this whole time, we've always looked for ways to automate efficiency and bring in the monotonous things, the things that you don't want to do, the repetitive, boring work. That is the things that we need to automate. They don't require your expertise. And so whenever I've had teams and I have support teams, I have developers, and what I always talk to them about is you are really smart. And I would really like you spending the time solving the problems we really need solved instead of moving this from here to there. That's the goal of using technology and using the innovation of tools. Or as a guide to help me, we did something similar to what Fiona talked about, which is taking AI and having it tell us strategically which things keep breaking in our code. Why is it? With all these lines of code, we have people who are no longer here. We have old systems. Where do we focus? How much time does a developer truly want to spend walking through lines of code, especially it's old legacy code? Using tools to actually help us be more productive. That's what this is all about, using innovation to help you be more productive. I think that there are certain types of roles that this may displace, but I also believe that it creates a new set of roles as well. The prompt is right now is not a perfect science. Figuring out how to write prompts, how to get the right information out of prompts. A lot of the work around the large language models, it doesn't just automatically do itself. There's a lot of work that has to go into that as well. So to me, it's less about replacement and more about being more strategic and getting a better quality of work out of our employees.
I see. That's very wise recommendations. Now, so one thing that people talk about lately is about customer data or client data. Data security and privacy are paramount. So has AI played a role in enhancing cybersecurity in your organizations? Can you share some of those experience, Fiona, especially for customer data security? How do you leverage AI to do that?
Yeah, so I think certainly a couple of different ways, but looking at models and data and outliers and sort of detection of fraud, etc. And I think also there's lots of packages out there that we're also leveraging and buying that are sort of custom built that have AI components in it to just help us keep our data more secure. So we've been doing both, some of it in-house and some of it leveraging packages that are out there. Actually, if I may add one more thing, because I know, Sheila, when you said the technology that you're rolling out and that struck me about ROI, etc. I think the other thing that's really interesting about Gen AI and how quickly it's evolving. So a lot of times we'll say, you look at something, you're like, oh, you didn't quite get the returns, and then you might come back to it in, a year, 18 months. We almost have to come back to it in 3 months because things change so quickly. So, anyways, I just remembered when Sheila, when you're talking about the ROI, and which is, making sure that you're going after the right use cases. But I think the other thing I would just say is the timelines with this tech right now is so fast that it's probably worth reevaluating. So slight tangent there, but that was
right. Well, that's very good information. I love that insights. We're running 3 more minutes of time. So looking towards the future, how do you see AI evolving in your industry over the next decade? And what strategic investments are you making today to keep pace with those changes? I'm going to start with Michelle, and then Fiona, and then maybe Sheila, you can close for us.
So for us, we're doing a lot of, I love that ROI continues to be, my team hates this, by the way, every time they bring me a new tool. It's always about business value and return on investment. But that's a big part of it. If you want to be able to invest, I need to show that when will we get the benefit? And sometimes it's not now. It really is being strategic and thinking, when can we see it? So maybe year 1 is going to cost us. But as we get everything in and developed in the processes, we will see the effectiveness and the results of that in year 2 and beyond. And so just using tools, or any tool, regardless of, or any tool, any processes that help us get there is going to be an ideal way of doing it. The other thing is there are so many generative AI tools. There's so many unlocks of generative AI and the tools we already purchased. We would be poor if I bought all or turned everything on. And I dare say not everyone needs all of them. So we're being really, really strategic around, again, that right tool for the right person in the toolbox. So for our consultants, for example, we took a subset of them that are doing a lot of our BAS work, and we actually gave them open ChatGPT Enterprise. But we didn't for some of those internal groups. Copilot actually is a better use of their time and a better value for them. We tried both to see, and we said, okay, so more strategically, what are the use cases that you're using? And then what's the right tool? And then when should we turn it on?
Got it. Cool. Fiona, well, how about what's your vision for the next 10 years? How you use AI?
Yeah, I think the advent of agents and essentially co-pilots and assistants, right? I think, and how generative AI can play into that, I think will change how we shop, right? And some of the experiences I think we talked about already, introducing much more of a multimodal, conversational turn to shopping. So certainly, I think a lot of interesting customer experience changes could happen, right, as a result of the technology. And then, a lot of the other things are really just underlying, getting us to be much better with our use of data, making things much more personalized. So hopefully it should make the shopping experience, just that much more delightful. So that's certainly what I'm going to be focusing on.
I see. Sheila, what would be the area that you invest in AI?
So what I'd like to just say is that I actually think that this capability and this technology is here to stay. And I'm also going to do what Michelle said, and I'm going to date myself. But could you imagine our world today if we still use MapQuest or Yellow Pages? I mean, we don't think about the implication that search has done for us, and what the phones, your maps on the phones have done. So I just think that it's so ingrained into how we work, we don't think about it anymore. I actually feel the same way about Gen AI. And specifically for Honeywell, I think it's a really big underpinning. We have 3 big mega trends that Honeywell is going after in a very big way. It's sustainability, it's aviation, and industrial automation. In all 3 of those trends, I have a lot of data and have a lot of information and have a lot of insights, whether it's how we're running all your buildings and making your buildings safer and more optimized and healthier. And so all of them have this layer of data. And you think about autonomous driving and autonomy, that's all about data and robots doing stuff. Well, it's all about the data. And so if we can use Gen AI or AI to make this smarter, then to me it's just going to be a natural capability that we will incorporate into really everything we do.
That sounds fantastic. Well, that is the wrap up. Thank you so much for such an engaging conversation. Again, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us.